guys, and welcome back to the 4th episode of our weekly Korean. Woo! We're going so strong! Okay, I gotta keep my excitement under control. So the topic that I want to cover today is more on the vocab side, and it has to do with Korean numbers. Those of you who are a little bit familiar with Korean or have been learning it for a while, you guys will know that Koreans have 2 counting systems. Gosh, could they not make it any more complicated? They have 2 counting systems that they use interchangeably in their daily life and speech. What I wanted to do today is just kind of give you a brief introduction to both counting systems and then leave the topic of when you use each system to a next episode. But as I was practicing for this video, I actually realized there's so much to talk about each of the counting systems that I just can't fit into one small episode, or otherwise it's just gonna drag on for like 20 minutes, which none of you would want to sit through. I'm gonna only focus on the Sino-Korean numbers in this video and then make another video next week talking about the native Korean numbers. The Sino-Korean numbers came to Korea from Chinese, and they actually have their own corresponding Chinese like letter or writing or whatever, but I'm not gonna get into that because I don't know Chinese. But what I want to do is just go through the first 10 numbers, and after that introduce all the patterns, or pretty much just one pattern that you see occurring throughout as you go along and numbers increase, basically. So the first 10 numbers are 1, which is 1, 2, which is 2, 3, which is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Basically what you gotta do with these is just memorize. That's it. Nothing you can do about it right now. There's no pattern to it. It's just pure memorization. But as soon as you go over to the numbers that are higher than 10, you see a pattern that helps you memorize these numbers so easily. You'll see a number like 11 or 12 that you have the 10 digit and then the single digit, right? So in Korean, you do the exact same thing. You say number 10 first, and then you say whatever number you want to say that will make it either 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, whatever. So what you end up with is 11 being 11, 12 being 12, and then 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then you get to 20, which is also not difficult, and it is also such an easy pattern to remember. With 20, you have number 2 followed by a 0, which means you have like a single digit followed by a 0, which comes from a 10, right? So what you do is you just say 2 and then 10, and then you're done. Yep, it's that easy. In order to say 20 in Korean, you just say 20, which is 2 and 10. And that applies to all the numbers that go up until 100. So if you want to say 30, it will be 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and then you get to 100. Yeah? Awesome. Keeping that pattern in our mind, we just add the previous pattern from the numbers from 10 to 20 to this logic, and you have all the numbers in between the round numbers like 50 and 60. If you want to say 53, for example, you just break that number down to a 5 and a 10 and a 3, and then you have your 53, which is 53. 53. Ta-da! You're done. And as I said, you can do that with any number until 100, and when you get to 100, you just literally have to remember how to say 100 in Korean, and then you're done. And then all the patterns that we just talked about, they repeat once again. If you want to say 300, you just say 300, which is 300. If you want to say 747, yeah? It's gonna be 747, which is 7, 100, 4, 10, 7, which makes 747. You apply this pattern all the way until you get to 1,000, and then guess what? You just gotta remember how to say 1,000, and then you're good to go until 10,000. So the way you say 1,000 is 천. If you want to say 6,000, you say 6천, and then whatever rest, for example, 6,384. 6,300, what did I say? Was it 84? Yeah, 84. Yeah? Or if it wasn't 84, forgive me. But yeah, you get the pattern, right? It may be a little bit challenging to get into it straight away because you just gotta keep all the first 10 numbers in your mind just kind of constantly, and being able to say like, oh yeah, 7 is till, 3 is tam, 5 is o. You know, bringing that out of your mind will take a little bit of practice, but don't fret, because as soon as you grasp that, it will be quite easy. Now, there's only one last thing that I want to talk about in terms of Sino-Korean numbers, and that is something that may be a little bit challenging for some of you, but I hope it won't be too much. Okay, so that is when you get to 10,000. So when you get to 10,000, there's a specific Korean word that means 10,000, which is man. What's important to keep in mind about this is that when you want to say numbers that are higher than 10,000, you have to stop thinking about numbers in a way a foreigner would. I'm gonna explain what I mean. For example, I just have a random number here, which is 168,000, and if you would be thinking about this as a foreigner, you'd look at it and be like, oh, you can break this down to 168 and then add 1,000 and then you're done, right? So as a foreigner, you'd think that this number would be said as 168톤, right? Technically. No, it isn't. With this, what you have to do is that you have to keep in mind that Koreans have a specific word for 10,000. And with that, you have to keep in mind that whenever it comes to a number that is higher than 10,000, you gotta consider how many 10,000s can go into that number. Basically, the way I always think about it is that, can I divide this number by 10,000? And with 168,000, yes, I can. If I divide that number by 10,000, I'll get 16.8. Get rid of 0.8, you got 16. So what you gotta do is you gotta say 16, which is 16, then you say man, which is 10,000. So what you're saying is that there are 16 10,000s in this number, and then you just say 8천, which is the rest of the number, which is 8,000. So a Korean would break this number down into 16 10,000s and 8,000 rather than 168,000. Does that make sense? Do you see the difference? Just to cement this knowledge, I think we should take another number. For example, like a smaller number, which is 58,500. Yeah? Okay, let's do this. So we have 58,500, and the first thing you gotta do is think, can you fit 10,000 into this? And you can. So when we divide this number by 10,000, we get 5.85, whatever. Get rid of the 0.85, you got 5. So you say 5 10,000s, which is 5만, and then you just break down whatever rest is left, which is 8,500, which is 8,500. I really hope that helped. It will take a while, but be patient with yourself and ask me any questions that you have, whether about Sino-Korean numbers or even native Korean numbers, which I promise we will talk about next week. And we will compare these two systems, and maybe in the week after we will talk about in what situations do you use these numbers and do you ever combine them? Yup, because Koreans are funky like that and they love to just combine the two systems and confuse the hell out of everyone. Anyhow, I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend, and like always, I will see you on Monday with a new cover. And yeah, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this. 안녕!